Hello friends, so in that last video I was just haphazardly introducing you to this P5 library and how to get started coding in it. So I hope you watched that and you figured out whether you want to use this P5 editor or VS Code. I'm going to use VS Code. It does offer, for me at least, some comfort. I'm not online. It's always available. My sketch doesn't just disappear because there's some frozen thing happening on the internet. It's always on my computer. And if I'm not on the move, working on a Chromebook or something like that, I'm usually preferring to code using VS Code. And so we're going to do that. And I'm just going to code along with you. Well, this will be an experiment. Let me know in the comments if you like me making these code alongs or if you'd rather just read the texts. And you can see I made a note to myself, go back and make this shorter, but I decided not to. Let's just let it all hang out here. And you can read this text on your own. Basically, P5, as I said in the last video, is a canvas-based library. The one thing you want to notice right here is this GitHub repo. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to this website. I'm going to click this green button. You notice I'm on the starter branch here. This repo has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think this really these 7 branches are the ones we're interested in. This one is extra and this one is extra. So we're at 01 starter. That's a great place to be. I'm going to click download and I'm going to go ahead and just download the zip. If I double click on the zip, you'll see here we are. We've got Sound Game 1 starter, 01 starter. I'm going to take this folder and drag it onto my VS Code, pardon me, in the video too, onto this VS Code icon. And here you can see there's a bunch of stuff. So I kind of got you started here. We've got the libs inside this folder. There's the P5 library and the P5 sound library. We've got a folder of sounds, 0, 1, 2, 3, up through 7. It's an interesting coincidence. You've probably got 7 sound files from your recent Circuit Playground project. I think you should bring them in here, copy them in here, and use your own sound files. Just rename them to 0 dot whatever these things are, and convert them to MP3s, which you can do using Audacity. Or you can use these files, whatever makes you happiest. But actually, at the end of the video, I'd love for you to use your own files. But to start out with, we can start out with just these files if you want to just get started. And again, here's the index.html. I'm importing those P5 libraries and this file called index.js, which is this right here. And I gave it a title. And truth be told, I would probably do well to put this script tag inside the body, but it'll work in either place. And certainly these libraries can be imported in either place. So we're importing these into this index.html. So all this JavaScript is going to run, and it should give us a canvas tag. If I go right click on here or control click, I'll open with live server. And there it is. So that's the starter sketch. It's already got this ball. If I go up here and look in the more tools, developer tools, we'll see there's my main, there's my canvas. And if I change these little arrow clicks to go to the console, we'll see, oh boy, so there's some issues with P5 sound. That's been true in the past. It's clearly still true. Actually, I think maybe I could look into updating these libraries. It may not be true anymore. But for now, we can see there's this problem. We're not going to worry about it too much. It's not a red. It's just a yellow. This is a red, but it's irrelevant because it has to do with the icon that's up here where this globe is, which is not there. So that there's an icon, there's an icon, there's an icon. There's no icon there. But we don't care. We don't need to worry about that. I'm going to keep going and just take a look at this. So there's the README. Let's see if there's anything in there. That's just got a link to the finished sketch. Let's take a look at what we're going to be building. And if I go here, hopefully it's still up. And there it is. I need to click on this, I think. And you can hear there's some sounds. So we're going to make this little generative music sketch. And, it's got a lot in common with the last project. It's just, to my mind, our first step towards creating a game together. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go to that. I'm going to close this. We're going to build this. I hope it'll be fun. A basic P5 sketch, you can read that. I just said that in the last video. We also have a preload function, and let's take a look at our code. So I'm gonna just keep my code window open, and if you can, I've got 2 monitors. If you don't have 2 monitors, you can just split them side by side. But I think if I keep mine big like this, it'll be easier for you to see what's going on. And I'll actually increase the font size a little bit. Now you can really see what I'm doing. So I mentioned in the text, there's this, in addition to setup and draw, there's a preload function. And in this preload function, we can load assets like images and sounds. So here I am loading those sounds in a for each loop, as I've described in the past. I'm saying, give me an empty array with a length of 6. And for each element of that array, load a sound in using this index. Now, this may not feel super intuitive or comfortable to you right now, but that's okay. It will soon. Just do it. Just do it again and again, and it'll start to make a lot of sense. And if you want to have a little bit of background on this for each method, again, there's that JavaScript morsels playlist. I explain really what's happening here. For now, I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to say this is going to generate for us 6 sounds by going to 0 through 5 of these MP3 files, because we're going to a path that is this sounds path, and then inside of there, every index. So I could change that to, say, index, and then I would have to change this to index. So hopefully that makes it clear what's happening there. We're not actually using this parameter that we're passing into this function. This parameter is just there so that the for each method doesn't get confused, because what we want is this second value that'll be inserted into these parameters, which will be the index number of each element of the array as we go. And I have to also change this sounds at index. And so that's going to insert into each element of this array consecutive sounds. Let's just go through what we've already got here. We've made a canvas. We set up background color, an RGB. Canvas is 800 by 800. We've given in our draw loop here, we've made an ellipse at 300 in the X, 300 in the Y. It's 90 pixels, and these are all pixel values. It's 90 pixels big. And we've given it a stroke, which is the outline, and you can see that's sort of greenish, and a fill, which is sort of purplish. It's got some red and some blue. And we'll look again at this, and we see there's your 800 across and 800 down. This is 300 over and 300 down in the center, and I think it was 90 in size. You can see there's that green outline and it's purplish. Now let's get this thing to move. I think is going to be our next step. And I want to mention again, if you are interested to learn more about all these P5 functions as I go along, you can just pause the video and go to this reference, and let's just say I want to find out about ellipse. So it's a method in P5, and you can see this whole document. What does ellipse do? Ellipse draws an oval. It takes in an x, a y, and a width. And if you don't supply this last one, this fourth one rather, then that'll be a circle. If you supply 4 values, it'll be an x, a y, a width, and a height, so that would create an oval. And then optionally you can supply a detail if you're working in WebGL, which we're not, so we're not going to worry about that just now. All right, so back to what we were working on. We've got our ellipse, and you can play with these values. You can just pause the video and play around and see if you can create a different looking ellipse, or just take a chunk of code, copy and paste, and let's just say we'll make this one 170, and we'll make this one be more like that color, and we'll see that we get now a big blue one. Now I need to move it over to say 100, and we should see both of them. Now we've got both those ellipses. And you can make as many ellipses as you want. You can even create a for loop and generate a whole bunch of ellipses, or do it inside of a for each loop. We're going to actually do that in a second. We're going to make multiple ellipses, and I'm going to show you kind of what I think is a pretty cool way to do that. So let's keep going. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to keep the background. And what I'm going to do is come up here to the very, very top, up by our sounds. And all these variables that are declared outside of these functions are in what's known as the global scope. So these variables are available, they're available in all of these functions. And that's why we're going to declare these sounds out here, and then we're going to initialize them in the preload, is because we want to then use these sounds in our draw function. So this thing that I mentioned before is going to loop and loop and loop. We're going to use those sound values. And we're also going to use this thing I'm going to make next. This is an object, as you probably already know. So you can see I'm basically all that stuff we had before, those values in there. I'm gonna store those in this object. So then we'll get this X and this Y and this R for the size, radius, and this fill color, which I'm gonna supply as an array, which is gonna have the R and the G and the B. So I'm gonna say 0, right? And we're gonna go also give that a stroke color, which is going to be a different color. And you know, you can change these values to suit yourself. But what we've got here is some data that constitutes a ball. And we're going to use that data now. So, you know, one way we can do that is to just replicate what I had before. I shouldn't have deleted that so fast. I'm going to say stroke is going to be ball1.stroke color. The fill is going to be ball1 dot fill color, and the ellipse is going to be located at and let's just see if that works. So, oh, that needs to be ball 1. So, and that needs to be ball 1. Seeing the keys of this ball 1, and I'm feeding them into those same functions we had before. And let's just bring this over. And I'm actually going to pull that off of my text over there, so we can just keep this over here. So now I'm going to get rid of this console, and we can see there's my ball. Hopefully this won't make things too small for me. Holler at me in the comments if you found that having both these open made you sad. So you can see what I've done is just use this data that I created up here, and I've generated a thing. And that's pretty helpful. But where it really gets helpful is if I do something like this. I'm going to take this code that's right here, and I'm going to make myself a little function. So I'm going to say const draw circle. And I highly recommend that you watch those JavaScript morsels videos. This is going to be an arrow function. This arrow function is going to produce a side effect. It is not going to have a return value. And I sort of went through that, what that means in the morsels videos. What it means is we're not going to return anything. We're not going to have that return keyword. Instead, we're going to call those functions that we called before. But since one of the key things of a function is we use it for a bunch of different things. Instead of just using it for ball 1, we're going to use it for any object that has this shape. So we can make more than one ball object with different values for the X, the Y, the R, and the colors. And we can pass that in to our function. And to do that, we're going to do a thing called object destructuring. It's really neat. It's really pretty simple. It's just going to take all those values, the X, the Y, the R, the fill color, and the stroke color, and we're going to put that without any keys in here. And now we can use those values in here. We'll just say, get rid of our ball. We're going to use that stroke color. So now we've written a function that does basically what we were doing in our draw loop before, but we've written it in a way that we can reuse it many times. This is a very, very useful thing in computer code, and it's really important when you're writing computer code to start thinking that way. So I mentioned before we could just make another copy of this and do it again. It's so much smarter to just make this draw circle function and call it inside of the draw loop. And you can see, since I took that stuff away, I'm not actually calling this draw circle, so I'm not getting my circle. What I need to do is I need to call this function that I just wrote named draw circle. Let's go ahead and make this bigger so we can see the whole thing. Pretty nifty glitches. I'm calling this function draw, or I wrote this function draw circle, and I now need to call it. And I need to call it with these values. It expects to get these values. And it expects to see them in an object. It's going to pull off the X and the Y and the R and the stroke color and the fill color off of my ball 1 object. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say draw and I think this code feels a lot better. There's a little bit of setup you have to do up here. But now anytime I want to draw a circle, I can just pass in a ball. I got a make ball too. Sort of a similar kind of a shape. We'll say X of 300, Y of 100. And you know what? I'm noticing from the code that what we want to do is we want to also add some other values. So let's go ahead and add those. I'm going to add to my ball 1. Give it a speed. And you notice when I don't have a comma at the end of a key value pair, I get this red. Really notice to see these red squigglies. That means your code's broken. That's another great thing about using VS Code. It helps you out in that way. So we're going to have a speed, fill color, stroke color, outline width. And the right sound. So we'll, as we start to use these values, we'll get to them, but you can see I'm loading in two sounds from this sounds array into ball 1. And I'm just going to copy this whole thing. So we'll at least have the key pairs. And there's ball. So we're going to make 3 of these. This will be 2. This will be 3. And we know this is going to be 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And let's see, our outline width is going to stay the same. We're going to give ball 3 a speed of 2, size of 50, 80, my bad, a Y of 200, and a fill color, this will be 190, 80, 230, 220, 6, 5, 4, 5. We'll make it a shorter sound length. And then on ball 2, we'll make this a sound length of 100, or that's ball 1. Of 1,000. Outline width 6, 0, 220, 20. So that seems consistent. 190, 80, 230. Is that not the same here? Okay, so let's do 190, 190, 80, 230. And you know what I'm noticing here? I'm noticing just a little tiny code smell. This fill color is the same for all 3. Let's make a variable called default fill color. And set it equal to that. And the stroke color is also going to be the same. We'll say const default stroke color. It's going to be a different ray. It's going to be this one. Now we can, right, we have these 2 variables, default fill color. And we'll just fill that in for all 3. It may be that we'll want to change that later on. I don't know. I can't remember what I was thinking. I did this like a year ago. I'm exploring this just the same way you are. I just thought I'd make this code along video in case you felt lonely or missed me. So here we are, default stroke color and default fill color. And, you know, that's a totally optional change. Let's see if we get some balls. So there's one ball. I don't see ball 2. Let's see if we get ball 3. We saved it, and we get 2 balls. Where's ball 2? I think maybe I forgot to update this position, so this should be y of 100 and a size of 50. And we're going to give this a speed of 2. Now, outline width, everything is cool, and we've got 3 balls. That's what we wanted at this stage. So now I'm here in the code, and we've got this ball 1, ball 2, ball 3. Neat. Now, there's actually a repo branch here. And I forgot to mention, back at the previous step, there was one for the draw function branch. So every time as we go through, you'll see, and I'm going to have this in all of our code projects, there'll be these little links. You can click on this link, and you can do one of 2 things. You can either look at the code, compare it to yours, or you can just go ahead and download it. So we can go to Sound Game 1 Starter and go to with draw function and download this code, and it'll be just the same as if you had written it yourself. So you can kind of, you know, cheat that way. And that's totally legitimate to do in coding, in my opinion. So you can see there's our 3 balls repo. You can go there. If you're not getting this, just navigate here and compare what you have against what I have, or just replace what you have with what I have. And you can see we've got those 3 balls. We can also do something kind of cool, which is to say, and hopefully this kind of array manipulation feels okay to you if you took the trouble to go through those JavaScript morsels videos, if you had the time to so far. And if you want more practice, so I'm going to say balls dot for each ball. What? That's the same as what I had with those 3 lines of code. And I love that we can put those 3 balls in an array called the for each method. And now this function here that we're passing into the for each method is going to grab each ball and then call this function draw circle and draw it. And we can actually, we're not returning that necessarily, so we can just write that like this. And it's actually a little more truthful. So we can draw a circle with each ball. And this right here will be each member of this array. And voila. If you want to, you can also console.log ball. And if you want to see the console, just widen out your web browser, more tools, developer tools, or hit Command Option I. For me, it's like so intuitive. And so you can see we're in the draw loop, so it's logging that out constantly, and it's going to log out all of them forever. So not a great idea to keep that in there. It's going to take up a lot of your computer power. But I just wanted to show you could do that. So we can see that log to the console. Now, I really like these array methods. I use them I encourage even absolute beginners to use them because I think it actually really simplifies programming. I think it's a harder thing for somebody that's programmed a little bit to wrap their head around than for a complete beginner to wrap their head around. But let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think about array methods. Let me know if you understand them. Okay, so what's really nice is we can also move these balls, and I'm going to do that now. And so since we've got our data, we're iterating over our data, we can actually update our data right in here. And we don't want move by, we want move. And so move, sometimes VS Code gets a little bit extreme with the suggestions that it makes. So we're going to move each ball, and we're going to write another function to do that. And in this case, we're going to take that ball in, and we're going to say ball.x and let's just see what we get. So we've got our thing, and look at that. We're moving our balls just like that, and that's pretty cool right there, isn't it? I kind of like it better sometimes with all the residue. So what we're seeing is each ball getting drawn on top of the other ball. We can refresh our browser, and we'll see, yeah, so each time the draw loop runs, it moves the ball by the speed of the ball, which will be either 1 or 2, and we'll see these guys move faster than this guy, twice as fast. So it's all doing exactly what we would expect it to do. If we want to make this look a little bit more like your traditional animation, we'll just move this background into our draw loop. So now it's going to draw the background on top of the old balls every time. And that looks just like things are supposed to look when we're animating them. Nice, huh? And we're almost done with this, believe it or not. It hasn't been as long as I feared it was. So we've got our background, we've got our balls, and you can see there's another waypoint here. So we can go to our GitHub repo, and we can go to moving array. The next thing we're going to do is add these lines that are going to be on the edge, and we're going to make our balls turn around when they get to the edge of the screen, because right now they just disappeared, and that's not good. So we see they're going to go all the way to the edge, and they're just going to keep going. And, you know, in the text for this, I say, I'd like you to take a stab at doing this yourself. And I think that's a good idea. I'm going to pause and end this video now and come back with a second video. But what you should know is that there in that assignment notes, I did give a reference to this line, which is going to take some parameters. It will take an x and a y and a second x and a second y. So if we want to draw a line between, say, here, that's going to be 900 on the x and, say, 0 on the y, and that'll be how big was our canvas? I can't remember if it was 800 or 1,000, but the size of our canvas. Oh, so 800, 800. So this is going to be 700-ish on the y, on the x, and 0 on the y. This is going to be 700 on the x and 800 on the y. And we can, so we can, you know, we can draw a line like that. And I'm going to draw you one of them, actually, because I've already gone so far to explain it. We want to maybe have a fill color that could be black. And like I was saying, 700, 0, 700, 800. We'll get that line on the side there. And I don't know why it's green. Oh, because that's a stroke. I want to make this a stroke. So now it's black. And you can change the width. You can explore yourself in the P5 docs to find out how to change. Actually, I'll just tell you. Stroke width. Here I am doing the whole thing for you. And I was going to make you do it yourself. Your job is to do the other one on the other side of this. So I'm going to make the stroke width of 10. Oh, that wasn't good. Stroke width of... I'm going to have to look up stroke width. Let's look it up. So we'll look up in here. We'll go back to the reference. The stroke width want. Stroke weight. Sorry, it's a stroke weight. My bad. I think maybe they changed that. Stroke weight. So we want stroke weight of 10. And you can see that made it pretty fat. I can go down to 3. You can play with that yourself. But the key thing is we want to make that line. And we want to remember where... you see it hits that line. That's going to be 700. So when our ball gets to 700, we want some way to stop it. And that's really a much better challenge for you. Is how are we going to stop that inside of our draw loop? Remember, we want to check each one. And I'll give you a clue. It's going to be something kind of like this. It's going to be a function. I want you to write a function that's going to turn the ball around when it hits this point, 700. I'll be back in the next video to tell you how to do it. Or you can just read, or whatever. But I'm going to make one.